Welcome to the deep dive. Ever feel like your ambition is, I don't know, a really powerful engine, maybe a high-performance one, but right now it's just idling?
Yeah, like it's maybe running low on fuel or something's kind of blocking the exhaust, right?
Right.
Stopping it from really roaring.
Exactly. That's the paradox we're diving into today, this feeling of being ambitious but lazy.
Mm-hmm.
You've got these huge visions, big aspirations, but the follow-through, it just
Yeah.
isn't quite there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tension I think a lot of us recognize, and honestly, it can be pretty frustrating.
Oh, absolutely. And that's precisely why we're digging into this. Our sources, they frame this feeling not really as like a personal failing,
Hmm.
but more as a clear sign.
A sign of what, though?
A sign of underlying barriers,
Hmm.
internal ones, external ones,
Mhm.
things that are just getting in the way of taking action. So our mission for this deep dive is to explore what causes this really, and more importantly,
Yeah.
to give you some concrete, actionable strategies. We want to help you clear those blockages, basically. Turn that inertia into actual progress, real achievement. So we're aiming to provide a practical framework, focusing on essential mindset shifts and some really effective habits to get that engine revving again.
So if you've ever felt that stark contrast between your grand plans and then this surprising lack of follow-through,
Yeah.
well, this deep dive is definitely for you.
Hmm.
We're going to unpack why it happens and, crucially, how to break free. Right, let's open the hood then. Look at the engine.
Okay.
Often these huge visions, they feel so big, they're just paralyzing our brains. It's fascinating. They seem wired for that immediate payoff,
Right. Instant gratification.
Exactly. And they see these massive kind of undefined tasks as maybe threatening, so we avoid them. So what's the very first step when a goal just feels overwhelmingly huge?
Yeah, that's where one of the most powerful strategies comes in, right from our sources. They call it desglosar y simplificar las metas, basically breaking down and simplifying goals.
Yeah.
And it's not just about making things easier, although that helps. It's more about psychologically disarming that resistance we feel. The real key here, fragmentation.
Fragmentation. How so?
Think of your big goal like, I don't know, a massive boulder. You can't just shove the whole thing at once, right?
Impossible.
But you can chip away at it, little pieces.
Chipping away. I like that image. So we're talking genuinely tiny steps then, not just like smaller tasks, but really small.
Precisely. The material really emphasizes passos diminutos, identifying the smallest, easiest possible action you can take, like dead simple.
Okay, give me an example.
All right, so if your massive goal is, say, writing a book, the first tiny step might literally be open a document on your computer.
Just open it.
Yeah. Or even just write one sentence. That's it. The whole point is to reduce that initial friction that, I don't want to start feeling, to almost zero.
Okay, that makes sense. Get the ball rolling, however slowly.
Exactly. And it also brings in this idea of microhabitos. It draws from principles you might know from, like, atomic habits.
Ah, okay. Like the 2-minute rule stuff.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah.
It's about committing to a task for a really short time, like just 5 minutes a day. The power isn't in the 5 minutes itself, necessarily.
It's the consistency.
It's the consistency, exactly. No matter how minimal it feels, that consistency builds momentum. And momentum, that's the real fuel for getting that engine running.
It sounds good in theory, but I can hear some people thinking, okay, 5 minutes. Am I really making progress, or am I just, getting good at doing almost nothing?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I get that.
How do these micro habits actually bridge the gap to, like, significant achievement? And thinking beyond just the practical steps, how do we light that internal fire? What really drives us to want to take even those tiny steps?
It's a really good question.
Yeah.
And it leads perfectly into the next point, reconectar con el propósito, el porqué. Or, reconnecting with purpose, the why.
The why.
The sources are super clear on this. Intrinsic motivation, that internal drive, it's an incredibly powerful engine. It's not about stickers or bonuses.
Right, not external rewards.
Yeah. It's about what genuinely matters to you. And when we talk about ancrage emotional anchoring, we're essentially tapping into, well, classical conditioning almost.
How does that work in this context?
Your brain starts to form strong positive associations with taking action towards your goal. So pursuing it feels less like forcing yourself with willpower and more like a genuine pull towards something positive, something you want.
So it's about getting really clear on your purpose, digging deep into why these ambitions matter to you. What value do they bring? What impact do you hope to make?
Exactly. Visualizing the benefits, the end result, the feeling of achieving it, that acts like your anchor against that laziness or inertia.
The psychological anchor. I like that. Okay, but let's broaden the lens. Beyond our internal world, our mindset, our why, how much does our actual physical state and, the environment around us play a role?
Oh, huge.
Because even with the clearest purpose, sometimes you just feel
Right.
drained, right? Like the
Yeah.
tank's empty.
Yeah. That's a critical next step.
Yeah.
The sources really highlight optimizar la energía y el bienestar. Optimizing energy and well-being. It sounds basic, maybe, but it's fundamental.
How so?
Well, low physical energy, low mental energy, that's a massive contributor to that feeling of inertia. If you're consistently exhausted, finding motivation is just incredibly hard.
Makes sense. So what are the key actions then?
They're the foundations, really. Prioritizing sleep is huge. And crucially, establishing a regular sleep schedule. Your body clock, your circadian rhythm, it craves consistency, not just catching up on weekends.
Right, the consistency again.
Yep. Then there's nutrition and exercise. That sluggish feeling after a huge sugary lunch.
Oh, yeah, the 2 p.m. slump.
Exactly. A balanced diet, regular physical activity, they're proven to boost sustained energy levels and improve your mood. They directly fuel your ambition. And finally, stress management.
Wow, the big one.
Yeah. Chronic stress is just an enormous energy drain. So practicing relaxation techniques, meditation, mindfulness, even just spending time outside in nature becomes vital, not just nice to haves.
So it really sounds like self-care isn't just fluffy stuff. It's actually a non-negotiable part of overcoming inertia, getting that engine running smoothly.
Absolutely non-negotiable. But beyond our personal well-being, our surroundings,
Yeah.
they can either drag us down or lift us up, right?
For sure. My desk is proof of that sometimes.
Yeah. So what does our environment actually do to our ability to get things done, and how do we, engineer it for success?
Yeah, how do we set ourselves up to win?
Our environment has this direct, often really underestimated impact on our capacity to act. This is where crear un entorno propicio para la productividad, creating a productive environment, is key.
Okay. What does that look like practically?
First step, be ruthless about eliminating distractions. We all know what they are. Phone notifications, turn them off. Unnecessary browser tab, close them. Maybe even consider website blockers for those common time sinks.
Guilty.
We all are. And if you possibly can, create a dedicated workspace. Doesn't have to be a separate office. Just an organized, clutter-free zone that signals to your brain, okay, this is where I focus on my goals.
Right, creating that mental association. But it's not just the physical space, is it? Sometimes we need, external prompts or help from others.
Absolutely. That's where responsibilidad or accountability comes in. It can be a really powerful force.
How so? Like telling someone your goals.
Exactly. Sharing your goals with a friend, family member, maybe joining a support group. It can be an incredibly effective external motivator. Just knowing someone else is aware of what you intend to do can give you that little nudge.
Yeah, you don't want to let them down, or yourself, I guess.
Precisely. And then there's recompensas estratégicas, strategic rewards. Planning small, meaningful rewards for finishing tasks or hitting milestones. It positively reinforces the productive behavior.
So you're training your brain.
You're training your brain to associate the effort with a positive outcome. So like giving your engine a little shot of premium fuel after a good run.
Okay, this all sounds incredibly practical. Breaking it down, finding the why, managing energy, fixing the environment, accountability, rewards. But here's something I see trip up a lot of ambitious people, myself included sometimes. What's that? Perfectionism. That relentless pursuit of getting it exactly right before you even really start. We get stuck in analysis paralysis. How do we overcome that specific blockage?
Oh, you've hit on such a crucial point. It trips up so many people. That chase for perfection, it often leads directly to doing nothing.
Right, because it never feels perfect enough to start.
Exactly. And our sources really emphasize adaptar la imperfección y la acción inmediata, embracing imperfection and immediate action. There's a mantra here. Hecho es mejor que perfecto.
Done is better than perfect.
Done is better than perfect. I need that on a Post-it note.
Maybe. It means recognizing that taking imperfect action is always better than taking no action at all. You can refine things later, you can improve it down the line. The absolute goal is just to start.
Get moving. Get moving. Think of it like, a bicycle. A slightly wobbly bicycle still moving forward, right?
Yeah.
A perfectly polished bicycle sitting in the garage is getting you absolutely nowhere. The sources really hammer this home. Starting, however imperfectly, creates momentum. And honestly, that's often the hardest part, getting started.
Okay, so the focus shifts. It's not about achieving perfection right out of the gate. It's about initiating momentum, no matter how small or wobbly that first step feels.
Precisely.
It sounds like so much of this comes down to really knowing ourselves, though. Not just applying generic strategies, but understanding our own unique patterns and quirks. How do we figure out our specific triggers for procrastination? Those moments where the laziness seems to sneak up on us.
That's exactly right. And that's where comprender los desencadenantes de la procrastinación. Understanding procrastination triggers is essential. And autoconciencia, self-awareness, that is absolutely step one for change.
So how do we become more self-aware about this?
You need to become like an active observer of your own behavior, a detective for your own patterns. The sources suggest actually recording when and why you feel most prone to inertia or laziness.
Like keeping the log.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Is it with certain kinds of tasks? Does it happen at specific times of day? Or maybe when you're feeling particular emotions like stress, boredom, maybe even feeling overwhelmed by excitement?
That makes sense. Identify the pattern first.
Exactly. Because once you identify those triggers, then you can develop estrategias de afrontamiento, coping strategies tailored to you. Maybe you change when you tackle that specific task. Maybe you modify your environment right before you know that trigger usually hits. Or maybe you just reframe the task in your mind.
Okay, this whole framework gives us so many actionable things to try to get those ambitious engines out of neutral and into gear. But I imagine, like fixing any complex machine, it's not always going to be a smooth ride.
Definitely not.
What are some of the common challenges, the bumps in the road, that listeners might hit as they try to put these ideas into practice?
You're right, it's rarely a straight line. Our sources point out several inherent redos challenges. The first big one is resistencia inicial al cambio, initial resistance to change.
Just not wanting to do things differently.
Yeah, it can be genuinely uncomfortable leaving that comfort zone of inaction, even if you know that comfort zone is actually frustrating you. Our brains like familiarity.
True. What else?
Then there's mantenimiento de la disciplina, maintaining discipline over time. Consistency needs continuous effort. And, really importantly, it requires the ability to get back on track when you inevitably slip up.
Because setbacks will happen, right? The engine might sputter or stall occasionally.
Precisely. And that leads straight into gestión de contratiempos, managing setbacks. Not every strategy is going to work perfectly for you or work perfectly all the time. And that is okay.
It's not failure then.
No, it's data. It's crucial to learn from those times it doesn't work, adjust your approach, tweak things, rather than just throwing your hands up and abandoning the whole effort.
Okay, learn and adjust. Anything else?
One more big one. Superar el autosabotaje. Overcoming self-sabotage. Sometimes, what looks like laziness on the surface, it's actually a defense mechanism.
A defense against what?
Maybe a hidden fear of success, weirdly enough. Or, more commonly, a fear of failure. What if I try and it doesn't work out? Sometimes inaction feels safer. Addressing that can require a deeper level of self-awareness, really understanding those underlying fears holding the engine back.
Wow. Okay, so let's try and sum this up. This feeling, being ambitious but lazy, it's common, super common, but it doesn't have to define you.
Not at all.
It sounds like it's about understanding the why behind the inaction, breaking those daunting goals way, way down into tiny steps, creating the right environment, both internal and external, managing your energy, and then just starting, even if it's imperfectly. It's about just getting that engine humming again, building that momentum.
Exactly. And with the right strategies, tailored to you, this whole paradox, it can genuinely be transformed into a really powerful force for change. Ultimately, it's about letting your ambition actually drive a life of purpose and fulfillment, moving you from being stuck in idle to, meaningful action.
So, as you're listening, think about your own ambitions. Ask yourself, is your laziness really just a lack of desire? Or could it be maybe a hidden fear of what comes next if you actually succeed? And maybe more importantly, what small, imperfect step will you take today, right now even, to get your engine moving forward?
Great question to end on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope these insights help you transform your own aspirations into action.